Last night in the AUDL semifinals, we witnessed stunning highlights and emotional efforts, culminating with two results that created a potential classic for Championship Sunday. The New York Empire are now 14-0, looking to become just the third team in AUDL history to complete a perfect season. The last to do it, the Dallas Roughnecks from 3 years ago. And those same Roughnecks are ready to match New York today, prepared to do everything in their power to take the title back to Texas and deny the Empire their golden moment. We've got New York and Dallas in the 2019 AUDL Championship Showdown next. Under sunny skies in San Jose, California, we proudly welcome you to the 2019 AUDL Championship Game, featuring the South Division champs, the Dallas Roughnecks, and the undefeated 14-0 New York Empire. Sunny and warm and breezy, and a perfect afternoon for Ultimate. With Ian Toner and Megan Tormey, I am Evan Lepler. Delighted to have you with us for this championship game, the 8th in the history of the American Ultimate Disc League. And for the third time, potentially, we could have a perfect season. Ian, the New York Empire are going for perfection. They were not perfect against the AlleyCats yesterday. They were good enough. How much better do they need to be today?
I don't think they can afford to take their feet off the gas in the second half. I understand they had a comfortable margin, but they're going to need to put in an effort that culminates in a full 48-minute performance from both lines on both sides of the disc if they're going to match up with Dallas well enough.
Megan, a year ago, these two teams did meet at championship weekend. It was a 62-point offensive slugfest that Dallas won 32-30. Obviously, both teams are a little different from a year ago. If anything, the Roughnecks are hungrier than they've ever been.
Right, and we saw that intensity in their playoff game against Raleigh and in yesterday's game against San Diego. This is the game they came to play. They obviously prepared for the Growlers yesterday, but this was the moment they were looking to avenge their loss in the finals last year. So they are coming out with a hunger, I think, even bigger than we saw last night.
Well, the Dallas Roughnecks finished the regular season losers of 3 of their last 5 games, but that has not mattered in the playoffs. They steamrolled the Raleigh Flyers on the road, took down the San Diego Growlers, who played valiantly last night, and now the Roughnecks get to battle Jeff Babbitt, Jack Williams, Grant Lindsley, Ben Yott, and the rest of the New York Empire. Abe Coffin and the rest of the Roughnecks are ready. Kai Marshall had 5 blocks last night. Bill Nye is in the house. We'll talk with Bill at the half. Roughnecks in the Empire. AUDL Championship is next. A man who started playing Ultimate in 1973 and has become a legend internationally for his science and entertainment exploits, Bill Nye will handle the coin toss. Nice crowd on hand, sunny skies. It's going to be in the low mid 80s today for two teams that played yesterday. So New York won the toss. That guy has so much enthusiasm for life, for Ultimate. It was fantastic having him on our Game Day Live set. And we're about 60 seconds away from the opening pull. Just enough time for keys to the game. Ian, you got New York. Megan, you got Dallas. What do the Empire need to do, most importantly, Ian, to take the title and complete a perfect season?
Make life crazy for Dalton Smith, Henry Ferruta, and Abe Coffin. They cannot complete passes at the rate they completed things yesterday in their convincing win over the San Diego Growlers.
I would be shocked if Dallas were able to generate as many blocks against the Empire as they did yesterday against the Growlers, and they have to not let that cause their intensity to wane. They're going to have to continue to push. Also, we saw what Lindsley and Williams could do with the disc yesterday when the AlleyCats amped up the pressure. They were able to throw over the mark and over the defender to get the disc to the end zone. So Dallas is going to have to be undeterred by that.
Bill Nye tosses the coin toss disc into the crowd. Bill Nye will join us up here in the booth at halftime to share his thoughts. He was watching both games at home yesterday. He was very excited to meet Megan, even more excited than Megan was to meet him. It was incredible.
Not possible. You know, they say never meet your heroes. In the brief moments we had with Bill Nye, he was exactly what you would expect from watching his shows in the 90s and his current show today. He is just as happy and as enthusiastic in person as he is on TV.
New York will begin on defense. Another famous Ultimate player, Marquez Brownlee, launches the opening pull of Championship Sunday, and we are underway from San Jose. And Brownlee's pull sails out of bounds as these two teams get used to the wind early in this game. We welcome all those of you joining us around the world for the 8th AUDL Championship Game. Dallas Roughnecks going for their second championship after winning the title with a perfect season of their own 3 years ago. The New York Empire looking to win the title for the very first time. The first throw of the game, Abe Coffin to Kevin Richardson. Bo Kittredge on defense, chasing Richardson around. It's Josh Aloro who starts on Abe Coffin. Matt Lamar on Henry Ferruta. Mike Drost on Connor Olson, who dishes downfield to Thomas Slack. Brownlee has the Slack matchup in the opening point. This shot floating up there. Olson elevates and lands inbounds for the opening score. This kid will turn 21 years old in 6 days, and he plays this game like a seasoned vet.
Nice give and go action here from Olson before the Empire double team has a chance to lock in on the sideline. He throws a quick scoober to get out of trouble, takes off, and gets rewarded with a shot to the end zone that I'm sure was riskier than the Dallas coaching staff might have liked.
Well, you saw Ferruta's reaction to it. He immediately put his hands to his head. Olson bailed him out.
Yeah, it certainly did. It should have been a much simpler shot. As you mentioned already, Ian, that was some clever maneuvering from Olson, just striking up the line. It could have been a very easy shot for Ferruta if he had set his feet just a little bit more, gotten a little lower, and kept the far lip of the disc down.
Ben Katz, Harper Garvey handling for the New York offense. Jeff Babbitt starts the game on O today for New York. Jack Williams, his first touch near the sideline in bounds. Chris Larberg on Williams and shooting it to Ben Yacht. The first opportunity for Kai Marshall, and he comes up empty as Yacht flips it into the crowd after the immediate answer, just 20 seconds off the clock as Yacht gets his first of the day.
Well, as Kai Marshall was jogging back, and you could see Jay Frood motioning with his hands as well, it looks like Chris Larberg may have messed up the force after Jack Williams caught that underneath throw from Harper Garvey. He gets this disc all the way on the flick sideline, and the downfield defenders are expecting Larberg to take away that flick throw and force him to throw a backhand closer to the middle of the field. That's just a complete defensive breakdown there on Larberg's part.
Ben Yacht was involved in 15 of his team's 30 goals in the semifinal game last year against the Dallas Roughnecks, a game that Dallas won 32-30, and through 2 goals, we're kind of on the pace for 32-30 again. Very different from the 2 games we had yesterday. 17-15 for New York, 23-18 victory for Dallas over San Diego. Abe Coffin, a much quieter game in the semifinals than he had in that South final against Raleigh, but still very solid. Speaking of solid, Henry Ferruta and Dalton Smith, you emphasized how important they were, and that disc kept alive by the tumbling Wilder. Shaky start for Ferruta. Wilder bails him out after Olson did, and Coffin threads the needle to Richardson. 2-1 Roughnecks.
What an unorthodox red zone set there from the Roughnecks. They stay in that spread horizontal stack, even though they're 20, 30 yards outside the end zone, and none of the Empire defenders are able to clog any of the middle of the lanes, and it's just a nice, easy shot up the middle from Coffin into the end zone. Not something you typically see in a red zone set when most offenses consolidate into that central vertical stack.
We talked a little bit about this yesterday, and this is one of the things I am most shocked about from Dallas at the end of their season this year is how much chemistry they have in unorthodox sets, having experienced major change across lines, and yet they still remain fairly comfortable.
Kevin Richardson did not score any goals for the Dallas Roughnecks yesterday. Played a very solid game with 36 completions and no turnovers, but no goals scored. He gets his first today as Yacht shoots it. Looking for Lindsley. That's right on the money. Could not have been any more perfect for the undefeated Empire.
Look, we're 2 offensive points in, but this is the display that we were expecting when we first saw these rosters get released before the season. How is anyone going to slow down the combination of Ben Yacht, Grant Lindsley, Harper Garvey, Jack Williams, all on the same unit? And right now, they're breaking the mark, they're attacking open space, they're keeping space for each other, and it's proving incredibly difficult to slow down.
Yeah, you think about minimizing the impact as opposed to taking him out of the game entirely, because if you stop Lindsley from going deep, he's just going to go under and be just as potent, just as lethal with the Frisbee. And as you mentioned, so much offensive power on the line. He's got great targets in Yacht, in Williams. It's about minimizing their impact. You can't stop it altogether.
Third goal of the weekend for Lindsley. 4 goals in the first 2.5 minutes of this 2019 title game. I think both coaching staffs, Wes Nemec for Dallas, Brian Jones, the head coach for New York, had game plans for their opponents today in their minds coming into the weekend, but they didn't want to think about it too much because they didn't want to overlook the Indianapolis AlleyCats or the San Diego Growlers. Ferruta rises up for the Wilder dump. What's New York doing to slow Dallas down here?
Well, you can see they're very deliberately peeling off their man-to-man assignments and trying to anticipate that next throw.
Heard a whistle as the throw went off, and a triple team was called with 3 defenders all within 10 feet of Abe Coffin. You're allowed to double team in the AUDL, but you can't triple team. Whistle ended up helping the Empire, though, because Coffin had completed the pass. So Abe now doubled by Drost and Kittredge, resets to Richardson. A quick touch for Smith, and in the end zone, it's Wilder. Still no turnovers through the opening 5 points.
Both yesterday and today, Dallas has showed us that they are very comfortable taking lots and lots of passes across the front of the end zone. This particular possession really exemplifies how well they're doing that and maintaining space. We had 3 passes across the front of the end zone, each one getting about 3 to 5 yards, and eventually finding a wide open Wilder in the end zone.
This is clean, high-level ultimate, and it's really smart handler play because as the Dallas Roughnecks offense inched closer to that red zone opportunity, they saw the poaches that the New York handler defenders were throwing at them, and they were throwing swings and jumping as they caught the disc upfield to gain yards every time that poach was there.
That possession took about 90 seconds off the clock, by far the longest point yet. Disc has not touched the turf yet for either side. Here's Lindsley shooting it for Yacht, testing Marshall. Another opportunity, and Marshall comes up with a disc. His 6th block of the weekend and the first in the final. Making a statement on New York's big guy.
There it was, the moment we were hoping for early in the game. Kai Marshall watching Ben Yacht's hip, making sure he stayed within 2 feet of him so he could close the gap to make that D.
Kaplan Maurer picks up the disc for the Dallas defense, and Gabe Hernandez rips a flick half the field where Jack Williams gets a hand on it, and Jeff Babbitt picks it off.
Jack Williams with the team from New York.
So Dallas not making much of its first break opportunity. See Jay Frood chasing Lindsley around. That's a pretty fun matchup too. Nice job defensively by Maurer, denying Katz the reset. It's Hernandez on Garvey, and now Babbitt's going deep. We do see Zach Marbach on the field, which is a good sign because he left the game yesterday. This is Connor Klein up the line, and he beats Griffin Miller to the spot to tie the game at 3. Two entertaining games yesterday, and certainly a fun start to the championship Sunday between these two great franchises. Ben Yant to Connor Klein, tied at 3, first quarter, championship Sunday, San Jose. The New York Empire, everybody thought coming into the season that they would be here, and they have lived up to expectations. They're 14-0. 13 of their 14 wins, though, have been by 5 or less, including a 2-point win yesterday. Certainly expect this game to be another tight one, just like it was last year when they met. Dalton Smith picked up by Jabron Meeser. Here's Coffin with Oloro on the mark. Again, Kittredge has Richardson. Lamar on Ferruta. Brownlee on Slack. Downfield Wilder chased by Ryan Drost. And Mike Drost poached off to allow Connor Olson to get open. Dalton Smith throwing and going, runs over Drost in the process. And the whistle blows, and Mike Drost is like, yeah, you ran me over. We talked a lot pregame, guys, about Dallas's collective swagger as a team, and I think a lot of that comes from Dylan Larberg and the defense. Certainly part of it comes from Dalton Smith. He's a pretty confident kid, has been for a long time. Coffin swings for Richardson. On a switch, Lamar has him now. And a pick downfield will slow the Roughnecks down and cost him 10 yards. This possession has to please Brian Jones on the New York sideline.
You read my mind. The Dallas offense having to work harder and harder for every yard, complete a greater volume of passes than some of their earlier possessions. Who knows, they may not get a turn here, but the energy expended and the accumulation of that pressure can matter later in the game.
Yeah, and you can see them having to second guess their first and second looks.
Abe Coffin and Thomas Slack to culminate the point that took almost 2 minutes off the clock.
Flip side of that coin, great confidence builder for this Roughnecks O-line unit. Hey, New York's going to get physical. New York's going to throw a different look. New York's going to make us play small ball. We can do that all day. We're right at home.
Yeah, Dalton Smith, I feel, is really setting the pace for the offense for Dallas this weekend. I mean, his throw and go is helping get the disc just a step ahead of the opposing team's defense. It took almost the entire length of the field for it to coalesce that point, but that throw from Coffin to Slack was wide open. You could see that New York was looking to try and set their defense and just came up short.
Abe Coffin, 13 for 13 throwing so far with a pair of assists. And Dallas chose to roll the pull intentionally out of bounds, so New York starts about 25 yards from the end zone. They attack on the sideline, and Garvey hammers across field to Babbitt. Ben Yant has been involved in all 3 New York scores so far, dishing 2 of them and catching the opener. Got Joel Clutton active today. That's a change in the Roughnecks lineup from yesterday. Dallas not putting up much resistance there. As Connor Klein catches his second goal of the game. 3:50 to go in the first. No breaks yet. Roughnecks and Empire 4-all.
Championship Game.
We're tied at 4 in the opening quarter. Tristan Yarder, the 18-year-old Empire youngster with a pull, scooped up by Abe Coffin. Same 7 out there for Dallas offensively. Coffin, Ferruta, Smith, Slack, Olson, Wilder, and Richardson. And there's a miscommunication there, but it's saved by Wilder. Another shaky moment for this Dallas offense, and you feel them teetering on the brink. Dalton Smith keeps it alive and then throws to Richardson, who runs it down, living dangerously. Dallas back up by one, 5-4.
I think Dallas is recognizing the fact that they are going to have to push the gas on their offense, causing them to take some of these ever so slightly riskier tosses. You know, we talked about how they're moving pieces just kind of circular to stay ahead of New York's defense. So it can lead to those miscommunications. It can lead to throws that, you know, your teammate has to stretch out for, like Richardson did there. But everyone's on the same page. They understand that this is the necessary game plan, which is why they're pushing it, but everyone's heads up about making those grabs like we've seen from Wilder 2 times this game so far.
New York back on offense. Kaplan Maurer bouncing around on Harper Garvey. Jay Frood chasing after Lindsley. Marshall tried to get the D underneath, but it's Yacht, who's been involved in every goal so far. Lindsley downfield for Cats, and here's Garvey into the end zone. The streak continues. Ben Yacht, who is involved in 15 of the 30 goals in the semis against Dallas a year ago, has 2 goals and 3 assists in the first quarter with 2:37 remaining today.
Look, we know Ben Yacht is a towering receiver, and he's going to win a lot of battles in the air. And yes, Kai Marshall won one of those battles earlier in this quarter, but he's also demonstrating his just general cutting expertise, field awareness, timing, and he's also been a great continuation thrower. I think he's not so subtly making his case for league MVP here in this first quarter.
He's got not all of his family, but most of his family here. Do you know Ben is one of 8 kids, all boys. He's got 7 brothers. He's the second oldest. 6 of the Yacht brothers, including Ben, are here, and several of them were on the field playing a little pickup after the Dallas-San Diego game wrapped up last night.
My hat's off to Mama Yacht. I have 1 son, and that's enough.
Shout out to Weston. And Dallas trying to take their time. Olsen, Smith, and Coffin playing catch. This is kind of how Dalton Smith racked up 57 completions and 57 attempts last night. A lot of sure-handed decisions. Roughnecks seem very content here to play patiently and let Dalton Smith drive the boat. And great point by Smith. He told Olsen to find Ferruda, and that extra feed opened up Smith in the end zone wide open for the Dallas score.
I mean, tic-tac-toe. How about Dalton Smith's vision? He's thinking 2 and 3 throws ahead, understanding how the defense is going to respond to the disc movement and attacking the vulnerable space that's not yet open, but will be open 2 throws later.
Still in the first quarter, but Dalton Smith and Abe Coffin are 43 for 43 throwing the disc. Dalton out of Texas A&M. Been in grad school getting his doctorate in physical therapy the past couple of years. 26 years old. Dalton will be 27 in November. Still only 2 turnovers in the game as the deep shot goes to Yacht, and he had tons of steps. I beg your pardon, that's Grant Lindsley. First goal that Yacht is not involved in goes Garvey to Lindsley, and I'm not sure what Jake Reinhardt's plan was there.
Well, that point was all about the deceptiveness and the incredible change of direction pace from Grant Lindsley. We saw him start with a quick underneath, and before you saw it, he was already 15 yards into the deep space.
I think Reinhardt's mistake was that he looked back to see whether or not Garvey was going to throw the disc as opposed to just following Lindsley.
That's a great point, because when he did that, Lindsley was 10 yards past him by the time he realized.
Gives you a sense of just how difficult it is to defend on this field. You have so many variables that you have to be measuring at all times. Am I keeping my eyes on my receiver's hips? Am I doing that occasional check-in with the disc to make sure I'm positioned appropriately? So many inputs that you have to be responsible for and aware of defending out there on this field.
Grant Lindsley turned 30 in May, but it still feels like he's in his prime in terms of straight line speed. Under a minute to go in the quarter, sending Carson Wilder as he accelerates and breaks away from Jabron Meeser.
You know, I think last night, Connor Olson went back to the hotel room and recharged the rocket launcher. He dumped some more gas in it, made sure it was good to go this morning. His throwing prowess on display here at championship weekend.
I mean, that's just ridiculous. Puts the appropriate amount of inside out on it and a ton of spin.
And I don't know about you guys, but it felt like Dallas had almost lulled New York to sleep a little bit. Like the Empire defense didn't expect that deep shot because the Roughnecks had been so patient these past few possessions.
That's an excellent point. They were content playing small ball, content playing small ball. Then Olsen gets the disc, takes one look downfield, and just uncorks.
Second goal for Wilder. First assist for Olsen. To Lindsley underneath this time with Frood defending. Here's Katz. Garvey. Just about 30 seconds left in the opening 12 minutes. The next 36 can be just like this first 12. Well, I'll be feeling pretty happy later today. 50-50 hanging up there, and it's Yacht, who was not the intended target, who skies over Olsen, and Connor pushed him after the play. Said that was for me. Yacht to Babbitt for the Empire score.
Well, Grant Lindsley correctly looking down that break side lane, thinking he's got opportunity, but it was hard to see if Marbach got a fingertip on that before the Huck was able to reach its apex.
I don't know. Did you guys see who was on Babbitt? Because that was definitely a blown assignment.
You see the end of quarter line out there, including Yacht, Williams, Brownlee, Babbitt. Brian Jones, our former broadcasting colleague, named the head coach of the New York Empire before this 2019 season. He has attacked this season with a tenacious focus since the day he got the job. 13 seconds left. His number 13, Dalton Smith, has the disc, and he's unmarked. He can hold it forever, but that's okay with New York. Dalton forced to launch, and this is not going to make it to the end zone. Ben Yacht adds to his stat line with a block to close out the quarter. 7-all. Dallas and New York to the second we go from San Jose. New York Empire did not get a turnover on the Dallas offense that entire quarter. Only 2 turnovers. Kai Marshall got a block deep on Ben Yacht. Gabe Hernandez threw a huck that Jack Williams deflected into the hands of Jeff Babbitt. Everything else has been a completion. Babbitt launching a flick as the whistle blew. And this is going to be waved off. A pick call downfield, so this disc is coming back. One thing I'm not sure Jeff Babbitt gets enough credit for, because people think of him as such a hulking defender, that guy has really good throws too. And Brian Jones, when I asked him why put Jeff Babbitt on the O-line, said he's a really good offensive player. He can almost always get an under whenever we need him to. Said Bo Kittredge played offense yesterday in part to be a defender on the field to defend the upwind end zone. And that was an effective strategy because Indy didn't break New York upwind until the second half. Babbitt getting an under on Clutton. Gives it to Lindsley. You know, we've seen a lot of teams throw double teams on the sideline. We're not seeing that from Dallas so far today. And that's through the hands of Williams. An unforced, uncharacteristic error from Jack Williams. Dylan Larberg will scoop it up to initiate Dallas's second break chance of the day. And you could anticipate that whistle coming. It's a timeout for the Roughnecks as the stall count rose on Dylan Larberg. So Wes Nemec has had the magic voodoo touch with these timeouts. We'll see if he can pull it off again, the second-year coach of the Dallas Roughnecks. Abe Coffin double-teamed. Dumps it deep into his own end zone to Kevin Richardson. Richardson squeezes it to Smith, who throws it right back to Richardson, who's unable to make the play.
Dalton's first thrown turnover of championship weekend.
Matty Weintraub picks it up and blades it to the back of the end zone, and Mike Drost makes the catch. Abe Coffin immediately apologizes for clipping his leg on the way by. Mike Drost isn't really interested in a conciliatory conversation right now.
You can see Coffin recognizing his mistake right away. I understand he was closing in, but that's just a tough look when all you can do is take out his legs and not really touch the disc. That's just tough.
Handled it after the fact as good as you can.
Yes. Yes. Recognition, owning up to it, trying to initiate some conversation, apologizing. Full marks in that regard.
That is a hold for Brian Jones's O-line, even though it was Weintraub to Mike Drost, a couple D-line guys that came in after the timeout.
9:34 to go in the second quarter.
Oloro with the pull. Caught by Ferruta to Smith to Coffin. Already close to midfield, and that throw is low, and Abe Coffin turns it over. His first throwaway of the final, second of the weekend. Bo Kittredge, whom, by the way, is looking for his 5th AUDL championship today with 4 different teams. And no player in the history of American professional sports, the Big Four, Major League Baseball, NHL, NFL, NBA, there has never been an athlete to win a title with 4 different teams, something that Bo Kittredge tries to pursue today as the Empire take a timeout after the first turnover from the Dallas Roughnecks O-line of the game.
It's all about reps. Who can complete as close to 100% as possible? Who can do what they've been practicing on the practice field all season long?
Garvey looking for Williams, who makes a tough one-handed lunging grab, and then shooting it for Lindsley into the corner. Jay Frood was there, and Lindsley sensed his presence, rose up early to make the catch. The first break of the finals belongs to the New York Empire. The 2 marquee additions for the 2019 Empire, Jack Williams and Grant Lindsley. And Jay Frood shaken up after the play. Check out Frood there. He grabs his left hamstring, it appears. That's not good news for Dallas.
I mean, that's your A1, D1, A2 defender. And heck, if your offense is in trouble, he's going to be the first guy to come over and shore up that O-line as well.
9:02 on the second quarter clock as Lindsley catches the first break. Dallas back on offense. Smith is going deep. He's got steps on Meeser and another gorgeous throw for the Roughnecks. This time Carson Wilder put it on a platter for his elder teammate, Dalton Smith.
It was interesting because Bo Kittredge was helping off of the stack just a tiny bit, but he didn't commit to chasing this down and fully playing that extra outfield position or safety help. Just a great finish there. Great spacing for Smith to attack.
Just 22 seconds off the clock on that possession for the Roughnecks, and Dalton Smith, I can't see it, but I imagine that's Jay Frude's left leg that Dalton's working on. Frood is not on the field at the moment. And remember, we mentioned Dalton Smith has been in graduate school for physical therapy. Garvey's diagonal hammer is perfect. Dylan Larberg held Yacht in contain about as long as anyone has before Yacht finally shook free to catch another Empire score.
You said it, Ian. This game in particular, Yacht's cutting ability on full display. The way he's able to go against some really tough defenders and just use footwork to get himself open after a moment or two of dancing with his defender. It's absolutely incredible.
And I love the defensive play call there from Wes Nemec. Just try and start things pinned on the sideline, get that double team. Don't let New York run any of its big space-making string plays for a 2 or 3 goal score. But that's the second time we've seen Harper Garvey just get this New York offense out of trouble on the sideline with a great over-the-top shot. It's hard to think of another player who I'd feel more comfortable picking up the disc in one of those double-team situations than Harper.
His variety of release points and different throws that he's proficient in certainly make him comfortable in those spots. Slack to Richardson. Dallas trailing New York by 2. Little over 4 minutes gone here in the second quarter. Here's Dalton Smith again. And Wilder taken off. Kittredge just saw poached off deep. That left someone open underneath. Right now, Thomas Slack is uncovered. And he picks up 10 yards underneath.
Lindsley crossing over to play defense on Dalton Smith this point as well.
Wilder holstered with a double team, gets it to Smith, who's triple team momentarily, and you do see the call. Jack Williams trying to argue that he was nearby Abe Coffin, but looked like a good call from here. Smith scoobers to Wilder. And he throws a strike to Kevin Richardson. This has the makings of a classic final, just as we expected. 1-goal game. Back in San Jose, Evan Lepler, Ian Toner, Megan Tormey, our entire crew. Dallas trailing by 1. 10-9 New York. Dalton Smith and the O-line. You see Jay Frude standing on the sideline. Hope he'll have a chance to play again, but not a good sign that he's not on the field for this deep point here. He appeared to tweak a hamstring chasing Grant Lindsley as he ran for the first break of the game. The only break so far, Williams to Lindsley to make it 9-7. after the game began with 15 consecutive offensive holds. Just a few chances for each team in those first 15 points. Downfield, Yacht unable to recover. Kai Marshall's just like, I had position, bro. Here's Marshall. Bobbled but hung on to by Chris Larberg. Here's Gabe Hernandez. To Kaplan Maurer. The Dallas Roughnecks in search of the equalizer. Into the end zone. Ben Rogers, inactive in the semis yesterday, catches the first break of the final for the Roughnecks. We're tied at 10.
And I understand that Ben Yacht was upset, but I don't think he's got an argument for an absolutely clear-cut, indisputable foul. He and Kai Marshall jockeying for position downfield, running into the same space. And this is what happens when your D-line offense uses the width of the field. They open up those windows in the opposite corner that defenders are not protecting. You saw Jeff Babbitt realizing the desperation there and the importance of preventing that throw going off, just selling out with a full extension layout, and he still couldn't preserve the force.
Ben Rogers turned 21 the night of Dallas's win over Raleigh in the South Division playoffs. Delay of game has been issued to New York. So Dallas will launch this pull 10 yards forward. New York halfway deep into its own end zone. Garvey to Lindsley. Yacht picked up by Ben Lewis this point. Rogers, who caught the break, just recently turned 21 on Connor Klein. Here's Williams. Fun matchup with Dylan Larber. Needs a reset. Finds Katz. 5 minutes to go in the half. There's a hearty Roughnecks rooting section right in front of our booth, imploring Dallas to defend. Here's Kittredge, 10 yards away. High release flick to Lindsley. Bo reaches into his bag of tricks. Certainly known more for his speed rather than this Harper Garvey-like high release flick for the score.
Breaking the mark that close to the end zone, that deep in the red zone, it's just so difficult for any other downfield defender to have a legitimate chance at a disc like that on the break side. You're expecting it to go closer to the middle of the field, but when Kittredge is able to step out and break the mark and go to that flick side, closer to the sideline like that, just so difficult to defend.
In general, I think that's the trouble that Dallas is having defending New York's offense, whereas Dallas's offense has speed that New York can't contain. New York just has some craftiness to their throws.
4.5 minutes remaining in this second quarter. Both teams' O-lines have now been broken once. Had 19 holds and 2 breaks through the first 21 points in the final. Slack, one of several members of this Roughnecks team who is initially anointed as a practice player on the roster before earning their spot. Coffin to Olsen. Got Wilder wide open, taking advantage of Alarcon, who had poached away into the double team. Risky, but successful. Both these teams have a bunch of guys with a knack for making the difficult play. One of them's Carson Wilder. We're tied at 11. We're tied 11 all. Bo Kittredge often likes to reflect on his own. My guess is he was just looking for some shade. It's not uncommon to see Bo by himself in a tent, sometimes wearing pajama pants. Bo turned 37 in June. Got the game-winning goal in New York's craziest game of the year, arguably the double overtime game against Raleigh. That was not the Empire's only double overtime game. They beat DC in controversial double OT fashion in the 2019 regular season as well. Jeff Babbitt adjusts, hangs on. Marbach sets the mark. The Cats. Athletic kick from Larberg to prevent the around. And here's Connor Klein. Bluffs the flick and the hammer. Stall count, Reining throws a blade and it finds the turf. Griffin Miller got his hand on it for Dallas. The Dallas Roughnecks led by 1 throughout the first quarter, but they've never been up a break, and Dylan Larberg wants this throw back. Can Kaplan Maurer bail him out? No. Grant Lindsley seals it with an interception. And Yacht fires to a wide open Harper Garvey. No one within 20 yards of him when that throw went off. And Yacht picks up another assist, his 5th.
Look, we're seeing how tight this game is. And that's now 2 golden opportunities wasted by this Dallas Roughnecks D-line. They force this incredibly rare turnover, and then Dylan Larberg just throws a really poorly executed huck that gives 3 New York Empire defenders a chance at the disc, and Kaplan Maurer basically none. The other opportunity I'm thinking about was earlier in the first quarter when Gabe Hernandez hucked to a receiver that was already 40 yards deep. These hucks have to come at a time when the receivers are closer to the thrower and there's more time and space for them to run onto them. The execution and the decision making for this D-line offense just leaving golden opportunities on the table.
Right, there are not going to be that many opportunities, not nearly as many as there were last night. They have to value the disc when they get those opportunities.
Saw Dylan Larberg chatting with the defensive or the coordinator, assistant coach Jim Davis, defensive coordinator for the Dallas Roughnecks. 2 experienced assistant coaches under Nemec and Jones, and Jim Davis and Dave Blau, as this ambitious throw is going to work. Abe Coffin angled it perfectly, dropping the hammer into Connor Olson's breadbasket.
Well, a couple of New York defenders opportunistically threw a double team around the midfield, and once that throw was released and Dallas escaped the double team, no one went with Connor Olson all the way down the field. There's got to be some recognition. Hey, we're falling out of this set. We're going back into our assignments. You can't just trust that someone else is going to pick up your slack without communicating it.
"24 points in, 12 all, and that disc, I think it just narrowly landed with a sliver out of bounds, enabling Garvey to pick it up and center the disc to the middle of the field. Matt Armour is on Harper Garvey, downfield for Lindsley. Already a yard across midfield after the OB pull. A solid first half for Harper Garvey. completed all 20 of his throws so far as we see Lewis foul Yacht. It's funny, Ben Yacht, like his only completions in the game to this point until then were for goals. A whistle right as Williams released. A pick is called. Part of what enabled Connor Klein to become so open on Maurer. Clock stops with 36 seconds left. Can one of these two teams take a lead into the locker room at the half? Oh, that disc was almost denied by a Hunting Clutton, but Cats put enough on it.
Joel, you got to pull the trigger, man. You are... Again, it's a variation on the same story. This offense is not going to give you that many opportunities throughout this game. Whether we're talking about a throw that you have a chance to lay out and get a paw on, or a turnover that you're going to get a chance to march all the way down the field for a break, you got to seize these opportunities.
I think it was an underrated thing what Dallas did, or what New York did defensively at the end of the first, not marking Dalton Smith, just trying to cut off his wide angle swings, upfield shots, forced him to not gain any yards. There were 13 seconds left then. Now there are 33 seconds left, so probably a different situation.
We got Ben Yacht playing center field, Kittredge and Babbitt playing shallow right and shallow left at the moment.
And I'm not sure about Dalton Smith taking as long as he did to pick that disc up, although he baited the double team and then went right over it to Ferruda. No changes to the Dallas O-line in this end of quarter situation, which could come into play if they turn it. Each team does have a timeout if they need it. As we tick down under 10 seconds, Ferruda takes a shot, and that's on the money. Oh, what a gorgeous put from Ferruda to Olsen. These two guys who have stepped up so mightily. We're tied at 13 with 3 seconds on the clock.
I felt like New York came out prepared for the buzzer beater, and as throws started to occur upfield, lost sight of where Dallas was headed and how quickly they needed to get down there.
3 seconds remaining in the first half.
3 seconds remain on the clock in a 13-13 game. How good has Ferruda been this weekend? Here we go. New York sending Brownlee, Yacht, Babbitt, and Kittredge deep. Garvey picks it up. He'll easily be able to get this to the end zone. Can Dallas come up with a stop? That disc is incomplete as the bodies tumble and the first half concludes. As entertaining as we expected it could be. Dylan Larber and the Roughnecks even with the undefeated New York Empire halfway through this championship game. First half was as good as it gets at championship weekend for Championship Sunday. 13-all, the Dallas Roughnecks and the New York Empire. It is a thrill to be in the booth alongside Bill Nye, the Ultimate guy, and the Science guy. Bill, welcome. You started playing Ultimate in 1973.
Yeah.
Now you've seen Ultimate explode in the 21st century. What's that been like for you?
Oh, it's great. And the best is yet ahead. That's what I tell everybody. So I grew up, you guys, throwing with my brother a Pluto platter, which was an early Whammo product that had the 9 planets, which included Pluto at that time. And I just love throwing a disc. I love watching it fly. I love the aerodynamics. I love the game. And so when I went to engineering school at Cornell, because I guess I had a good physics teacher or something. And so I met these guys from Columbia High School in Teaneck, New Jersey, who had invented the game. So I started playing. You know, I was a medium player. I was okay. And then when I went to Seattle, I started the team with a guy named Jeff Jorgensen. If you disc collectors, Jeff's name's on one of the early 141 freestyle discs. This is all behind us. This is a great game.
A lot
It's
of folks have asked me
game.
for the scouting report on Bill Nye as a player.
That's okay.
What was your strength?
Well, when I went to Seattle, I was a handler, but when I played at Cornell, there's this throw. When I played at Cornell, I was in midfield, I'd handle it quite a bit. I went to Seattle because I got a job at Boeing, and so I started playing there, and then our big rival was Dark Star in Eugene, Oregon. They were just great players.
What do you love most about the sport?
It's with a disc instead of a ball. There's just more going on.
Answer.
It curves. It literally flies. It hops. It has a rim to grab onto, and there's no contact. And if you think about it, it's the only team sport where the offense cannot score unassisted. And the Callahan, I'm not crazy about that rule. Carry on.
Well, you played with Henry Callahan,
I did
the guy
indeed,
that's
yes.
named after.
And he was tall and bigger than I was and faster, and he still is, I'm sure.
Give us your quick thoughts on what we're going to see in the second half. These two great teams going head-to-head.
Okay, I predicted Dallas by 1, but I'm watching it. I think New York is not working as hard to score. So I think excuse me. So I think they're going to pull. I've been yelling at the mates out there. I've been hoping that Dallas can hang with it. So let's see how they come out of the locker room here. It's whether or not they have the drive, because it's going to come down to one drop, one bobble, one reaching to throw, starting to throw before you've got a grip on the disc. It's going to come down to 2 of those, and that's going to be the difference in the game. It's such a high level out here. And what I would say to everybody, when the winds are this variable, all the points were on this end, and now they're starting to come over here. When it's this windy or unpredictable, you got to keep it low.
Bill, I liked what you said. The best is yet to come. That
That's
certainly
right.
goes for today.
It's 13-13
and for the
halftime.
years ahead. And we
Crying out
got
loud.
we got Bill Nye, the science guy, here on the broadcast. It's such a privilege to meet you. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Carry on, you guys.
Bill Nye, the ultimate guy, here with us in San Jose. We're going to take a quick timeout, then we send it down to our game day set. Maybe Bill makes an appearance there. Darryl Stanley, Mike Denardis, Chuck Kindred, Charlie Eisenhood standing by. 13-all at the half in the AUDL final.
13-13 here at halftime. Dallas Roughnecks, New York Empire playing an offensive showdown. It's been an exciting first half, and we are one half away from crowning the 2019 AUDL champion. Hi, everybody. Charlie Eisenhood, DC Breeze head coach Darryl Stanley, Raleigh Flyers head coach Mike Denardis, and Chuck Kindred all here with you at halftime. Thanks for joining us here on Stadium. Now, let's... how do we break down this first half? Darryl, I'll come to you first. I mean, we just saw clinical offense. I mean, a complete 180 from yesterday's games where we saw a lot of turnovers, very few turnovers, very few blocks. What did you see from these offenses in this first half?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're looking at New York, and their defense is having a real tough time slowing down Dallas's handler movement. Abe Coffin and Dalton are just getting what they want. Henry Ferruta, they're all doing a really good job of moving the ball and gaining yards with it. And I think if you look on the other side, Dallas had their opportunities, right? They're able to push Benyat out when they have Kai Marshall on them, and that got them a turn. And they got a turn on Grant as well. And it's like, you got to put those in. And they're going to rue those 2 chances that Dylan Larberg threw away.
Yeah, we talked before the game. Dylan Larberg could be a big linchpin on the offensive side of the ball after the turnover and, like you say, a couple turns. Mike, looking ahead to the second half, is there anything that either of these teams can do defensively to start to turn the tide? I mean, really not a lot of takeaways. A few turns, but not a lot of takeaways.
I mean, you saw in the beginning they both tried to junk it up a little bit, and both offenses ran through it. If they want to try junks, I think they probably have to go flick so people can't run off their throws as much. And, if they're going to try those creative defenses, you have to put them in a pressure spot opposed to letting them chop the defense up, because, when there's pressure, at least there's a chance. Both these teams are just cutting up these loose soft zones and soft junks, and it's shown that, they immediately switch to, matchup because both teams are just too efficient at beating them.
Right. Chuck, is this the game you expect to see this afternoon?
I was sort of thinking this would happen, and you never know with the wind midday here, but a lot of times it's kind of like this. We're getting a couple swirls here and there, but it's not overwhelming. It's not like it was. It'll be a lot worse in about 3 hours. And yeah, these offenses are really, really high level. They're just not being bothered by the wind. And yeah, and I mean, we're talking about how it's pretty hard to apply any pressure when you got these kinds of pieces on O. I wonder if they need to move some of their big shooters to D and just try to. I mean, nobody's really had any success applying pressure.
The wind is less. There's less wind than yesterday, and so I guess is this how this game is going to ride out? I feel like we end up at a spot where it feels like Bill Nye had the best prognostication before the game and said it's going to be one turnover, and it really feels like that's the way this game is trending. Is that it could be one mistake, one
drop, right? That's a break,
right? And in some ways, New York's kind of lucky to be tied in this game only because they got the mini break out of the first quarter when Dallas couldn't score at the end of the quarter.
I mean, that was really, as a coach, I was a little surprised. Wes Nemec there, you don't like to call another coach, but I mean, at the end of quarter there, he ran out his offensive unit in the end of the first quarter. 13 seconds to go. Where's Kai Marshall, right? Where are these big athletic players that you have access to? One or two of them should have been on that O-line to get that point. I thought that was a lost opportunity for them.
All right, well, it's going to be a very exciting second half. Thanks for joining us here at halftime, 13-13. We're going to take a break, and after that, the start of the second half, back in the booth with Evan, Ian, and Megan.
Ian, your big picture thought heading into this third quarter is what?
Dallas needs to value its break opportunities more highly. I want to see better decision making if they're able to get turns. I want to see better decision making from that D-line offense.
Megan, anything to add?
I have to echo Ian's sentiment. I think that the Dallas D-line might have to be prepared to play some small ball if they get a turn.
This is a shot that's testing the New York defense. Connor Olson is up to the task. In between Drost and Meeser, it's Olson who shines above.
It's almost like this one was up into double coverage with the backside help that Jabron Meeser was recognizing and trying to bring, but man, Connor Olson just showing out this whole weekend. Offensive threat extraordinaire.
I mean, Jabron Meeser was right at his side and Drost at his back. And sandwiched between those two, he had the wherewithal to get his arm out and maintain possession of the disc.
I'd call it a breakout weekend for Olson, but he was this good at championship weekend a year ago for the Roughnecks when he was just 19. Now he's 20 again. He'll be 21 next Saturday. He invited me to his birthday party last night after the game, which will be in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where he'll be starting his junior year the Monday after his birthday, a week from tomorrow.
Watch out, South Central Collegiate Region.
I told him if T. Boone Pickens sends the plane, I'll be there. First weekend without Ultimate Frisbee to broadcast in quite a while, as a matter of fact. Still be digesting this championship match. Connor Klein over to Grant Lindsley. Reinhardt on that mark around to Katz, chased by Larberg. And a low gliding throw into the end zone for Ben Yacht. Yacht the plus-minus leader in the first half. He was +8. Now he's got 4 goals along with his 5 assists.
And how about the confidence here from Ben Katz? Eyes the throw, sizes it up, throws a fake, and then a no-pivot backhand when his mark is, a few steps off and has the ability to shut down that lane. That's the kind of confidence and experience and presence that Ben Katz just exudes for this Empire squad.
And you watched him make that decision that he was going to put that throw when he saw Ben Yacht stop for a second. That put Kai Marshall slightly on his heels, and then he just continued the cut in the same direction he was going.
No turns for the first couple points of the second half. Dalton Smith to Kevin Richardson. Before the game, Richardson and Kittredge were chatting. Dan Emmons came over. I started to walk over and join them, and they said I wasn't old enough to be there. They said it was the old guy section. I said I'm older than a couple of those guys. Ferruda thought about the deep shot to Wilder, thought better of it, reset to Smith, who rounds for Coffin. Guys, Abe Coffin has been very solid in this game. You think if Dallas is going to win, he might have to do something heroic. Carson Wilder to Henry Ferruda to punctuate that offensive point.
Yeah, he hasn't been otherworldly as we saw in the South Division title game, but I think he's getting a lot of different looks thrown at him. I think Dalton Smith is rising to the challenge and assuming the role of the offensive distributor who needs to eat a lot of touches and keep the offense moving.
And that's part of the one-team culture that the Dallas Roughnecks are very proud of. If one particular player is not performing to the extent that the rest of the team knows they can, someone else is going to step up. We've seen Ferruda have a great weekend, Olsen have a great weekend. As we mentioned, Dalton Smith has been just absolutely on fire. I'm sure New York came in with a specific game plan for Abe Coffin based on his performance in Raleigh, but that just enables other players to step up, and they have.
Gabe Hernandez decides to do a little limbo show, ducking underneath the disc. That did not sail all that far, only about 50 yards downfield. And immediately Lindsley is within 30 yards of the goal line. Great handler defense from Maurer, denies the reset for Garvey, but instead Katz downfield shakes free. Ben Katz named the best decision maker in the East Division. The Swiss Army knife for this New York squad. 3 minutes gone in the third. Garvey scoobers to Katz. Oh, so casual.
I mean, that's just unguardable.
Are we at the point in the game, do you think, that the defensive lines are starting to get a little frustrated that they're not putting up more resistance both ways?
I mean, frankly, I would hope not. I mean, both teams knew that this was going to be an offensive battle and that they would just have to endure that and continue to try to pressure, grind it out over time. Maybe it's the time to think about slightly different defensive looks. I don't know that you want to change up anything too dramatically. But maybe throw something ever so slightly different to put them, the opposing team, on their heels and maybe make them make a careless mistake.
For the most part, the Dallas Roughnecks have been exceedingly patient right up until the moment where they're not. And that's been a good recipe for them. They've been perfectly content to just chill until they lulled New York's D-line to sleep. Here's Wilder. Lefties it underneath Ryan Drost. Coffin. Crossfield Scuber. Ferruda to a wide open teammate. Dalton Smith in the end zone. Roughnecks back up by 1. Dallas up by 1. Only been 2 breaks in the game. Each team has 1 apiece. We're tied 7-all at the end of the first. Tied 13-all at the half. Final couple of quarters of the AUDL season. Of course, we could play 5 more minutes and go the distance. Who knows? Jack Williams downfield to Grant Lindsley. That was the combo that dealt the first break of the game. This deep shot for Connor Klein, and he read it well. Chased by Griffin Miller, but Klein slam dunks the equalizer, 16-all.
New York has shown their game plan. They like a couple of shots down in the middle of the field, and then they look to stretch the field with a nice long put. Dallas recognizes this and still is powerless to stop it. That's how good the cutting prowess is of the New York downfielders, and even more so, that's how on the money New York's throws have been.
Dallas centers it to Coffin. Jabron Meeser casually sets the mark. Downfield Richardson created some contact with Kittredge, no whistle. Olsen, standstill snag. Downfield it's Wilder, and again he just puts it up for Richardson. It rose at the last second, but not too tall for Richardson to snag it for the Roughnecks score. 17-16 Dallas.
What a story we had in last year's semifinal between these two teams when Kevin Richardson went down with injury and was unavailable. He's a big playmaker who can stretch the field on offense. He can take a big matchup on defense if you need him to. And now he's just another piece of the offense, making his impact known deep into the second half.
Armour marking Garvey. Hammer over the top. Williams cannot get there. Here's the opportunity, Ian, that you've been waiting for. Can the Roughnecks value the disc and march the length of the field? Saw an early poach and a pretty quick trigger on the timeout call from Wes Nemec. Stops the clock with 6 1/4 minutes remaining in the third period. Throwing the flag signals the timeout. Wes Nemec try to double the Roughnecks lead. Dallas has not led by 2 in this game today. Dallas retakes the field with Olsen, Coffin, Richardson, Slack, Smith, Ferruta, and Wilder. No surprises. Alarcon and Meeser set the double team. Coffin's hammer crossfield for Richardson, who's picked up by Kittredge.
And great work by Richardson getting that disc back off the sideline immediately into the middle of the field, preventing any other double teaming or poaching.
It was a difficult throw, but what a catch by Slack to maintain possession for the Roughnecks. And then Coffin unleashes. Wilder versus Ryan Drost, and Drost wins the battle.
Again, I don't understand that decision. Carson Wilder was already 25, 30 yards deep when Abe Coffin released the disc. I'm at a loss for words.
Yeah, I think the adjustment then has to be on the cutters. I mean, clearly the throwers need to make better decisions.
Looking for Meeser, and Drost got a little trigger happy. This was Mike Drost. Ryan got the block as twin brother Mike throws the turn. And Dallas has another chance to break, closing it on 5 minutes to play here in the third. Ian, I think that was simply a trust throw, just trusting Carson Wilder. And we've seen Abe Coffin make so many great throws and have them work out, but this has quickly become the ugliest point of the game, and now Brian Jones takes a timeout. The Empire trailing by 1, getting the offense back on the field as we creep toward the finish line of the final. Garvey up the line, and in one throw, he hits Grant Lindsley to tie the game. That could not have been what the Roughnecks defense was looking for there.
I think the double team was trying to make any of those over-the-top throws more difficult, and they simply forgot to protect that up the sideline space. Good on the New York offense for recognizing that vulnerability. Lindsley for attacking right away.
Sure is fun to expect a great game and have it live up to expectations. And all of us were anticipating this matchup coming into the weekend, especially when Dallas beat Raleigh. That Flyers Empire game was so amazing in so many different ways. One of the games of all time in AUDL regular season play. This has a chance to be an all-time final. There's been one AUDL final decided by the slimmest of margins. That was 2 years ago, and Bo Kittredge and Grant Lindsley's San Francisco Flamethrowers beat the Toronto Rush 30-29 in Montreal. So we continue to see Dalton Smith carve up this Empire defense. A lot more traffic near the goal line. Richardson inspired to lay out to keep that disc alive. Slack to the bidding Coffin, unable to land in. No, they rule him in the end zone. Saying that first point of contact in the end zone for Coffin. 35 points in, still little separation. Roughnecks 18, Empire 17, 3:36 in the third. Dallas back up by 1 as Reinhardt pulls. One thing about this second half, you know who's been quiet? Ben Yacht has only been involved in 1 of New York's 4 goals. Harper Garvey's gotten more involved. Ben Katz has been more involved. Grant Lindsley has been in the mix from the very start. More great defense than the handler from Kaplan Maurer, denying the reset to Garvey. Instead, it's Williams. Chris Larberg bouncing on the mark to Lindsley. Kittredge near the sideline. And a whistle and maybe a pick, although Ben Yacht is stretching away from the play. It's like he tweaked something. And that obviously is a concern for the Empire. Yacht getting looked at by the team's athletic trainer, and Jeff Babbitt's going to replace him. I mean, you don't want to say it's justice for Frood to go out on one side and Yacht to go out on the other, because you don't want anybody to get hurt. But, I mean, that's the caliber of player that they match. They're level on the scale. Each team losing a superstar.
And now Dalton Smith subbing in as well. He's marking up against Grant Lindsley.
Williams. To Katz. Under 2.5 to play in the third. A rematch of last year's semifinal that Dallas won 32-30. Another high-scoring shootout brewing today as Katz collects the goal from Garvey. The 16th tie of the game at 18-all.
I feel like this in particular has to be frustrating for Dallas. They have New York pushed all the way over to the sideline. And yet they are still able to cut through narrow angles and get open.
Empire fans, take a look. Try to diagnose for yourself what you see from Ben Yacht on the Empire sideline. Ben Yacht, the game's plus-minus leader. 5 assists, 4 goals, +9. Carson Wilders at +8. And, you know, the official stats did not award Ben Yacht a block for the interception in the closing seconds of the first quarter. So they need to edit that. And there's great defense from Josh Oloro, but he hit Abe Coffin. There's been no foul signal yet.
Injury timeout, clock stopped with 1:50 to go in the third.
Take a look, see for yourselves. Was this clean defense from Oloro? Close call.
Yeah, it looks like their legs got tangled up. Maybe stepped on. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the cleat got him on the way down on the left calf, I think. Good spirit between Aloro and Coffin. Great to see Abe walking off the field under his own power. Presumably he'll be okay. But it is New York's disc with a chance to take the lead late in the third. This would be the Empire's first lead of the second half. Aloro takes a timeout. He sensed the stall count rising. That is Brian Jones's final timeout of the game. With 1:43 remaining in the third, 18 all.
And I love the recognition here by Aloro, understanding how critical this possession is, how critical this opportunity is. You know, we'll see what happens coming out of this timeout, but I certainly don't feel like that was a call wasted.
On the reset out of the timeout, Babbitt was hit hard by Smith. Clear contact foul, even though Babbitt caught the disc. Just a gigantic situation here. Remember, New York will receive to start the fourth quarter.
Foul on Dallas.
Garvey to Williams. Looking for Babbitt. Smith there defensively, but Babbitt again through the contact. Hangs on to give New York the lead.
Look, it's good to see them shaking hands there, but I think Dalton knows he did a little too much hugging as he went up for that disc.
I would say the entire time he was marking him.
Yeah, that's...
I mean, his mark was basically wrapped around Babbitt, and then as Babbitt was cutting downfield, he tried to stay hip to hip.
And that would be a very justified, unsportsmanlike call, and basically force Dallas to receive this disc from the back of their own end zone here.
Agreed.
A little surprised that we didn't see any call there.
Agreed. It's funny, you think about the evolution of Dalton Smith as a player. He came onto the ultimate scene as a young stud defender, and he's evolved now into this offensive rock.
Final minute of the third. No changes to this Roughnecks O-line. Still Richardson, Slack, Olsen, Wilder downfield with Coffin, Ferruta, and Smith. Crossfield shot, angled well for Wilder. If you're Dallas, you'd love to score here and not give the Empire another chance with the size and explosiveness that they have in end-of-quarter situations. Coffin, difficult hammer, and Ferruta is there. That was otherworldly.
How about
15 seconds to go in the third.
How about that vision? Just eyeing the soft spot on the break side. You could see he was going through. That wasn't option 1A. He had to look through other options in the stack, in the backfield space. And a nice finish by Ferruta despite the pressure.
And it was a daring throw, but it still was fairly sound. I mean, Ferruta had those two defenders at his back, so if Coffin shaped it appropriately, put it in front, he knew that Ferruta would have the best chance possible. And those kinds of daring throws are certainly going to continue to be necessary as the gameplay winds down and this game remains so close.
Good to see Ben Yacht back out on the field here for the New York offense.
Tied at 19. Another fascinating conclusion to the third quarter, a championship weekend. Time winding down. Garvey's going to have to fire. He does get it off. He's got Yacht and Babbitt. And it's Babbitt in the end zone for New York. He's so big and so huge and so clutch.
The best buzzer-beating athlete of the East, bringing in the 20th score for the New York Empire.
Dallas didn't have a chance.
I'm wondering if Harper Garvey got away with a massive travel on that release.
The score will stand, and New York will receive to start the fourth, leading by 1. We go to the final 12 minutes of Championship Sunday. The Empire, 12 minutes from perfection, leading 20-19. This Empire team began the season with a 3-goal win over the DC Breeze on April 13th. Their next game, they beat Philadelphia by 9. Every game since then has been decided by 5 or fewer, including 2 wins in double overtime. They beat Toronto by 3 in the East Division Final. They beat Indy by 2 in the semifinal here yesterday. And in a 1-goal game as the fourth quarter begins, Garvey on the sideline, double-teamed, crossfield hammer, a rifle. Marksmanship on display from Harper Garvey.
That's the perfect celebration right there from Connor Klein. Harper Garvey just going out there, doing work. Such an unassuming manner about him. Yet he's so deadly with his throwing accuracy and acumen.
Harper Garvey has a howitzer for a right arm. 21-19. We will not be tied at 20. Just the third number in the first 20 where we will not see a tie game. The question is, can the Roughnecks rally back? Ooh, nearly. Another block for Aloro on the mark of Coffin, and as he tried to set his mark, he fouled him. Coffin takes a breath and 10 yards. 1 minute gone in the fourth. Looking for Wilder. Got him. Abe Coffin with a fist pump behind the play. Carson Wilder, another goal for Dallas. His fourth.
The last 3 goals from Dallas have involved Abe Coffin.
You surprised?
Not particularly, but he might be turning on what he needs to for the Roughnecks at this time. To have the best shot possible, offense has to score that quickly, that efficiently, to get their team back on the field, to give them as many opportunities as possible to generate a D.
Carson Wilder is now Dallas's leader in plus-minus for this game. He's at +9, and he's the game leader in receiving yards. No one has gobbled up more chunks of yards as a receiver than Wilder, who's at 379. Lindsley's next at 340. Yacht just 256. Garvey to Katz. Just get the feeling Kaplan Maurer is going to get one of these dump resets eventually. He's been so close all game long, and his pressure may have led to that turnover. Larberg almost threw it away, but he finds Maurer. Dallas does have 1 timeout left. Maurer scoobers it for Larberg. Over the top. Testing Garvey. He's got the block.
And you can see Kai Marshall just as frustrated as the Dallas Roughneck fans here in front of our booth, pleading with Dylan Larberg to have more patience.
Lindsley shooting it into traffic for Yacht. And Yacht on the second effort makes the catch for the score.
He is so incredible.
Marshall and Reinhardt both right there. Marshall gets a piece of it.
Then Yacht gets a piece of it and still manages to scoop it up.
Look,
Kai is like, what do I got to do?
In our pregame show, Charlie Eisenhood talked about his expectation for Dylan Larberg being an X factor in this game. And I'm going to say, on the whole, he's had a negative impact for the Dallas Roughnecks. The costly turnovers that he's thrown for this D-line offense, when we're talking about a 2-goal margin here in the fourth quarter, I don't understand how you don't reel it in.
I think part of the issue, last night when they got a turn, the downfield cutters were moving. They were starting from close to the disc and they were moving. So Dylan looked up and had shots and took them. Tonight, New York is doing a much better job of containing the downfield pieces when there's a turn. And so Dylan, Gabe look up and they're like, we need to take a shot quickly. That's what worked for us last night. They're waiting just a second too long, and they're taking shots on players who aren't open, who are covered. Not saying that I don't agree with you, Ian. I'm just saying, like, I can see that they're trying to make the same decisions against a field that's completely different.
It's a great point.
Wilder was backpacked a little bit from behind by Ryan Drost, who apologized immediately. Entering this point, there are 4 players in the game that have 2 turnovers apiece, 3 of them from Dallas. Dalton Smith has 2 turnovers on 50 completions. Abe Coffin has 2 turnovers and 48 completions. Dylan Larberg, 2 turnovers, 1 completion. According to our official stats, and we appreciate all the stat keepers keeping all the great details for us. Dallas looking to slice the 2-goal deficit in half. Smith, 7 yards from the end zone. Low throw kept alive by Wilder. Levels the disc for Ferruta. Right back to Carson. And Wilder's now plus 10 on the day. Dalton Smith adds to his overall performance with goal number 4.
There's no stat given for this. There's no glory that he's going to get, but that's the 3rd disc that Wilder has saved this game.
That's our next advanced stat. Possession saving grabs. High difficulty possession saving grabs.
The previous 2 were on throws that were to someone else completely, but Wilder was in position, heads up, ran it down and kept it. That one was just a dig out.
(22-21), 8:17 to go in the 4th. Maurer on Garvey again. Here's Lindsley. Babbitt beats Clutton underneath. Benyat not on the field. Instead, it's a deep shot to Garvey, and Lindsley puts it right where it needed to be. Harper Garvey, you don't want to pigeonhole him into just being a handler. We've seen him come up with a big block, and now stretching the field into the end zone. Empire by 2, under 8 to play. Aloro uncorks a big backhand pull. Olsen. Sam Fetter was close to pulling the trigger there on the reset defense, but Dallas able to maintain possession.
A lot of physicality downfield between Dalton Smith and Sam Fetter. Some forearms, swim moves, going back and forth between the 2 of them.
Several members of the Dallas Roughnecks were tossing a football on the sideline before the game today. They initially said they wanted to play football, and I said, New York has Jeff Babbitt. Do you really think that's a good idea? Olsen, full extension again, just shy of the goal line. And he throws it away. Richardson didn't really give him much. and a good mark put on. And the New York Empire will have possession of the disc and a 2-goal lead with 6.5 to play. Foul called on the Roughnecks after the incompletion.
No timeout here for Brian Jones to use and get his typical O-line starters out on the field.
Marquez Brownlee completes it across midfield for Mike Drost. Hammer reset to Jabron Meeser, who himself has played a ton of offense in his AUDL career. 18-year-old Tristan Yarder resets to the bidding Brownlee. Into the end zone, the Empire take their largest lead of the day. What a grab by Marquez Brownlee on the grand stage to keep possession alive.
Great things happen when you swing the disc and you change the angle of attack. It's so easy for offenses to get stuck just trying to attack the same third of the field and go down the four-side sideline. But look at how many windows and how much space opens up once they get this disc to midfield and they continue breaking the mark all the way down that backhand side.
Mike Drost catches the goal. Brownlee kept possession alive. How about that inside flick after the bid, right where it needed to be? Man's got over 9 million subscribers to his YouTube page. I wonder how this professional achievement would compare to the tech social media empire MKBHD has built. Loaded his first video on YouTube about 10.5 years ago. Gabe Hernandez thought there was contact, and Matt Lamar agrees. Integrity rule with Lamar there admitting the contact. Hernandez from midfield. It's basically Dallas's defensive line out there to get a critical hold with the Roughnecks trailing by as many as they've trailed all weekend. Dylan Larberg, stall count rising, takes the easy completion to Hernandez. And here's Reinhardt. A lot of traffic near that front pylon. And Larberg turns it over again.
Man, I feel like Larberg thought about hitting Kai Marshall in the back of the field, but actually holstered and then turned it over on what should have been an easy reset.
Ryan Holmes to Ben Katz. Pick down field. And the Empire will get to bleed some more time off the clock. We'll take this under 4 minutes here. That's a dangerous bid by Reinhardt. And he's called for the foul.
That's just completely unacceptable. He's going straight into Lamar's back. I don't understand why that's not more severely penalized.
Because in ultimate, we often penalize the result more than the intent or the action, which is often misapplied in the opinion of many. This throw hanging up there, and Griffin Miller rips it away. Remember that play with just under 3.5 minutes to go.
Roughneck fans, hold your breath with Dylan Larberg holding that disc in the red zone.
New York playing really good red zone defense, but Maurer able to find his man in the end zone. Zach Marbach scores it, sending us to the timeout with 3:09 left. The New York Empire went 11-5 in 2013. Lost to Toronto in the playoffs. They were 10-4 in 2014. Lost to Toronto in the playoffs. They were 11-3 2015 and lost to Toronto in the playoffs. They were 7-7 in 2016, losing to the DC Breeze, and they missed the playoffs entirely in 2017. Returned last year after finishing the month of June with a below 500 record. They were 4-5, closed the season strong under Eileen Murray. Brian Jones takes over as head coach this year. The Empire add Grant Lindsley and Jack Williams. They've been the favorite from wire to wire. They have not been unchallenged throughout the season. They have been tested frequently throughout their East Division journey, a interdivisional game with the Raleigh Flyers as well. That very much could have gone either way, but here they are, now about 2 minutes away from an AUDL championship. Leading by 2, Lindsley shoots it, Yacht. Can he score one more? You better believe it. Goal number 6 for Ben Yacht in the final.
I feel as though in an effort to increase the defensive intensity, Dallas is starting to initiate a little too much physical contact to their detriment. They've received a number of yard penalties as this game has wound down. And in this particular possession, you know, I could imagine that even in flow, they would have still been able to hit Ben Yacht, but the stoppage of play allowed players to kind of collect themselves, regroup, and then it was only 2 throws to the end zone after Lindsley had taken his 10 yards before they found Ben Yacht.
Grant Lindsley has all 4 of his assists in the second half. For the game, Grant completed all but 1 of his 24 throws. Desperation time for Dallas. They're on the verge of falling short at championship weekend for the 3rd year in a row. And these nickel and dime throws are perfectly okay with the New York Empire defense. Mike Drossman flying by, deep shot goes up, and that's going to be too far for Connor Olson. Clock continues to tick away. 1:20 now remaining. Worst case scenario there for New York would have been a Callahan. Great effort from Wilder, but the catch made by Alarcon. No timeouts for New York. But they are progressing just fine with their D-line. That has answered the call today. We were wondering, would their depth be able to match Dallas's? But between Marquez Brownlee, Mike and Ryan Drost, Matt Lamar, Sam Fetter, Tristan Yarder, Albert Alarcon, this core, many of them Empire veterans, have had the goods when it's counted most. And Alarcon with the exclamation point, 26-22, the New York Empire can taste the title now.
And it's not just that depth you talk about, it's the patience that depth displayed throughout the course of the game, especially when you compare it to the lack of patience on Dallas's D-line offense. That possession, New York's D-line had to work through a number of double teams, a couple of non-traditional looks, and they just pump faked, drew some fouls, found the easy option, didn't force anything over the top. That's making the difference here. And that's why we're going to be crowning New York a champion in just 26 seconds.
And Dallas is going to look over this game again and say, how could we have squandered those opportunities?
New York has scored 7 of the last 10 goals. A stretch that started on the Jeff Babbitt buzzer beater to end the 3rd quarter. Another spectacular season for the Dallas Roughnecks, especially in the playoffs, where they take down Raleigh and San Diego to reach the final. Kai Marshall with the time ticking away. Dylan Larberg. One more cross-field hammer. And the game ends with a Larberg incompletion. That feels appropriate. The New York Empire, for the first time ever, are champions of the American Ultimate Disc League. The Big Apple on top of the Ultimate World here in San Jose. (26-22) is your final. The Dallas Roughnecks will certainly be disappointed, and there's an easy and obvious what if. The Jay Fruit situation, his injury, 2 years in a row, that injuries really hamper the Dallas Roughnecks from being as good as they could be in the final. But this is really about what Brian Jones and David Blau and the Stevens family have done with this Empire franchise, an organization that was very temperamental in a way, up and down. They could be great, they could be sloppy, they couldn't get over that Toronto hump. They finally did last year. That was a huge step forward, and now they add a new coach, they add some great superstar talent, and they execute when it counted most to win an AUDL championship.
Can't say enough about the combination of the coaching from Brian Jones and David Blau and the influx of talent. It's not easy to get that many stars on the same page, playing unselfishly, playing to their potential. And that offense was nearly flawless in this game.
Jeff Babbitt, certainly one of the superhero plays of the game, and Bo Kittredge wins his 5th AUDL championship with his 4th different team. The San Jose Spiders in 2014 and 2015. Obviously, the Dallas Roughnecks in 2016, the San Francisco Flamethrowers in 2017. Bo fell short against Dallas in the semifinals a year ago. But he earns his 5th title today with the New York Empire. See the disappointment on the faces of the Dallas Roughnecks. Phenomenal season, again, especially in the playoffs, where they really peaked. Down the stretch in this game, you think about the execution, that sequence where Marquez Brownlee made that layout grab, the inside break, and then the throw to Mike Dross. That made the score 24-21. That really felt like the nail in the coffin with just around 4 minutes to go. So Grant Lindsley wins his 2nd AUDL title. Ben Yott and Jack Williams, Jeff Babbitt, title number 1. And I've got a pretty good sense that this team could bring a lot of its core back in 1 year from now. Congratulations to Brian Jones, David Blau, and the New York Empire. They're getting their championship gear. Always kind of jealous of the championship gear. Let's toss it down to Megan Tormey on the sideline with the champion New York Empire and the commissioner of the AUDL, Steve Hall.
I am joined now by Commissioner of the American Ultimate Disc League, Steve Hall, who's going to present the trophy to the champions.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you. What an incredible weekend and just a terrific finals game. Thank you to all the fans around the world who have supported us this season. It's been absolutely incredible. Thank you to our special guest today, Bill Nye, who came and supported us. Two more special thank yous. First, to High Five, the platinum sponsor of Championship Weekend 8, and to the new title sponsor of AUDL, Deschutes Brewery. Big thank you. We are incredibly thankful, incredibly grateful. Now, to the 2019 AUDL champions, please put your hands together for the New York Empire!